Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. Up next on Another View, meet Dr. Terry Morris, a systems engineer at NASA Langley Research Center. He's done research for space station robotics and assessed space shuttle software. He has degrees from Mississippi State University, ODU, UVA, and certifications from the Brookings Institute and MIT. So most people might assume that he comes from good stock, a loving and supportive family. And that assumption is dead wrong. Sit back and be prepared to be inspired. Why your beginning is absolutely not your ending. That's next on Another View, so please stay tuned.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. Before we get started today, just two things that I think you might find very interesting. First of all, don't wait until the last minute to enroll for the Affordable Care Act if you need insurance, and that is really important. There is an upcoming Enroll Fest on Friday, December the 8th from 3 until 6, Saturday, December the 9th from 10 until 5, and Sunday, December the 10th from 11 until 5, all at the Hampton Roads Convention Center on Coliseum Drive in Hampton. And there are people there who will help you get registered. There will be entertainment. There will be people to take your blood pressure, do other things to help you in terms of your health. So if you need to enroll in the Affordable Care Act, there are people ready to help you Friday, December the 8th, Saturday the 9th, and Sunday the 10th. For more information, you can call 757-287-0277, 757-287-0277, or you can go to celebratehealthcare.net. And a couple of weeks ago, we did a show here on Another View where we talked about bridging the gap with our Muslim American neighbors. And I received some information from that community. It's called Happy Holidays from Your Muslim Neighbors. And it is Friday, December the 15th from 12 until 5 p.m. at 1442 West 49th Street in Norfolk. That's the Islamic Center of Tidewater. And they are inviting everyone to come out and celebrate with them. They'll be outside the mosque waiting with refreshments. They'll take you on a tour, answer any questions you have about the Islamic faith. And I think it's just a marvelous way for us to get to know each other. So if you're interested, please go Friday, December the 15th from noon until 5 p.m. at the Islamic Center of Tidewater. And we can put this information on anotherviewradio.org. So thanks so much. So a couple of months ago, I served as an MC for a breakfast in support of Peninsula Reads. It's an adult literacy program on the peninsula. Dr. Terry Morris was the guest speaker. He began his speech by talking about a stiletto heel that landed in his forehead and stuck. Now, I inwardly chuckled a bit, thinking he was going to make a joke because he had this little smile on his face. But then he told me his mom threw the shoe. And I remember thinking, he's not joking. This is serious. And then he told his story. And at the end of the story, I knew I wanted him to come to share his story with you, our Another View audience. Welcome, Dr. Terry Morris. Thank you so much for being here, Terry.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for the invitation.
So, all these accomplishments, everything that you've been able to do, the education you've received, it's all wonderful. But if you rewind the clock to the time when you were born until you became a young teenager, those were some pretty tough years.
Yeah, they were some, they were not pretty tough. They were absolutely tough. And born and raised in Chicago with a set of very abusive parents. When I think about it, none of us get to have any say-so on what family you're born in, what country you're born in, what language you speak, whether you're male or female, whether you're rich or poor or middle class. These are the cards life hands out to you. And so these were the cards that life handed out to me. I was the second oldest. I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, whenever my biological mother got angry, you would think she'd be angry at all the kids, but no, she I was considered what they call the scapegoat, and this is a psychological term where some families, extreme dysfunctional families, don't know how to deal with life, don't know how to problem solve, don't know how to find healthy ways of resolving conflict. So they find somebody or something, and usually it's one of the most vulnerable children, and they sort of heap up all of the condemnation. It's your fault. So I remember at the earliest, at 4 years old, being told that everything was my fault. It's my fault why they couldn't have a job. It's my fault why they're living in rat-infested housing. It's my fault why, all the problems that they were going. I just said, like, what did I do? But everything was my fault.
So were you smaller in stature than the rest of your siblings, or was there something different about you that made them pick on you as opposed to the other?
Hindsight.
Hindsight,
I was 4 years old,
Sure.
so all the details, especially at my years at NASA, you realize that sometimes the brain is plastic, that things that you thought were big at that time were actually small, and some things you thought were small were actually big, and there's a distortion as you go through time, given the way the brain works. And so all I can think of now as a man looking back on that time was, I think my biological siblings all had like different fathers, and I think she really loved my dad. And when he left, I guess he couldn't deal with the craziness. When he left, she looked at me, and she saw him, and it was projection. All of the anger she had toward him, all the frustration she poured out toward me. And so it's the only connection as a grown man going through many psychological counseling sessions, realizing that, it wasn't my fault that I got kicked out and beat as a little 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old. It was whatever issues the parents were having. They just decided that I was the one to bear the brunt of their.
So give our audience a sense of some of the things that happened to you. Some of the things you talked about in your speech.
Gotcha. Okay, so I believe the alcoholism and other things that were going on, the free love, trying to find yourself. I think she was one of those, trying to find herself. And I'd be kicked out at 4 years old, 5 years old in Chicago. And I know it gets cold in Hampton Roads,
No,
but
Chicago is cold.
Yeah, I'm talking about 20 degrees below zero, and you are kicked out in the snow and the ice. And you have to build igloos or dig in the garbage cans to find raggedy clothes or cardboard boxes to try to shield you from not just the cold and ice, but the wind. The wind chill factor was just unbelievable. And just trying to figure out what do I have to do to survive. I'd be kicked out for making a B on a report card or spilling a plastic cup of water by accident. And so be kicked out 2 or 3 weeks at a time, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. And so
where would you go?
As a dysfunctional family, you constantly couldn't pay the rent, constantly irresponsible. So they moved from house to house, apartment to apartment. And so depending on what apartment they were at that time, I'd be out on the alleyways behind some apartment building, or I'd be sleeping on somebody's attic, or sleeping sometimes on a roof to get off the ground, because at least in Chicago at that time, they had these things called super rats, where the rats were so big that the dogs and the cats were afraid of the rats. And so if you're a little kid and you're stuck outside and you're trying to survive, I was more afraid of the rats than the cold. And so sleeping with one eye open, one eye closed. And sometimes sleeping on abandoned cars, abandoned buildings, sometimes in vestibules, little apartment hallway complexes. And so it was just wherever I could find to sleep to make it until they let me back in.
So if you knocked on the door or whatever, they absolutely would not let you back in.
Oh, yeah. I'd be knocking on the door. I'd see my biological brothers and sisters, eating fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and they're in the the warmth, and I'm like, please let me be. I apologize. Please let me back in. I'll do whatever you say. You'll beat me, because back in the day they used to beat me with extension cords, and I'm talking about beating so bad to where you can see the whelps and the blood coming out of your back and things like that. And so, but that was preferable than freezing out and starving outside in the cold, and so. The abuse continued over and over. So I'm just going to lay out a few things that happened. So the ages may not be exactly, but the events are true. So I remember because of being kicked outside, having nowhere else to go, I was hit by one car, flipped over the car, knocked unconscious because I'm just out in the street with nowhere to go, or a friend pushes me out in the street. Don't call him a friend today, but at that time I thought it was a friend. I remember I've had knives through my hand at 8 years old, nails through my feet, playing on a playground, and there's a nail stuck in a piece of wood, old abandoned building. I remember being pushed off a 3-story building where I hit the concrete. I was knocked unconscious. I've had my right arm broken, to where it was shattered in 32 pieces. I've had just the number of things are just astonishing.
And nobody would come to help, or none of the neighbors would call CPS or, anything?
Now, I know this is going to sound strange, but given the Weinstein effect and things that we see around today, I guess society is starting to wake up to what they call this bystander effect. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, at least in Chicago at that time, everybody sort of knew. I don't know, there's this societal rules, these invisible rules that people abide by, and you're like, why are they acting that way? So you could see somebody being beaten right on the corner, innocent person being beaten, and the other people would just walk right by. And you're like, oh my God, they're just walking right by. And they just walk right by like they don't even see it. And so you see actresses, male and female, who are being abused and harassed in other ways, and people are seeing it. But they just say, well, what I thought happened, at least in Chicago when I was little seeing this, was I would hear stories that went like this. The one house across the street would see the other kid being abused across the street from them. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, hey, whatever goes on in that family, that's their business. And whatever happens so if I stay out of their business, they'll stay out of my business. And so that was sort of this rule. But I think that after Oprah and the talk shows, Sally Jesse Raphael and Ricky Lake and all these shows, that people start coming out of the woodworks. Let me tell you what happened to me. And then people start opening up. I saw that crazy behavior. I didn't know what to think about it. And so people are more comfortable, not completely comfortable, but they're more comfortable in talking about these strange things that they see that's going on.
So during this time when you were being beaten and all these things were happening, you were still going to school?
I was still going to school at the times where I could, because being kicked out, I didn't have a chance to go to school. So I missed several years of education, given that I'm kicked out. My biological siblings, I guess, would get on the bus and go to school, but when you're kicked out, you have no change of clothes. You have no food to eat. You have no books. They left the books in the house. And so what do you do about your education? So so whenever I would go back to school, well, hey, Terry, you're really behind. We'd like you to show up and things like that. Why didn't you show up? And when I go to school, I know. So this is, I don't know how to say it. So this is what's happening around me, but this is what's going through my mind. In my mind, when the teacher asked me, why did I miss the last week and a half? I'm saying, if I tell the teacher the truth, the teacher's just going to call my biological mother, because by that time my biological father had, run for the hills. And I said, if I tell them the truth, they're just going to call her. And if I tell them, I was kicked out for doing nothing, she's going to say, no, he did something bad and he ran away from home. And then as soon as I got back to that house, they would beat me even more with more extension cords. I'd be kicked out even longer. So I'm like, I hate to say damned if you do, damned if you don't, but there's no way to win in this situation. So I would lie to the teacher. I made some mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do all the extra homework, but I didn't want them to know how bad it was, because it was so bad.
Terry, did you ever talk to your sisters and brothers? To say to them, you guys aren't getting the same treatment I'm getting here.
Yes, from time to time I tried to do that. But if you've never been in a dysfunctional environment, it's hard to express the hidden codes that people say and don't say. So you can see crazy stuff going on, but some people are like, well, I'm not saying anything. So let me give you a classic example. You're sitting in a schoolroom, and the teacher's writing at the chalkboard, and one kid, a little bully, touches the rubber band, and he just spitball, and he's throwing the spitballs up at the teachers. Teacher turns around, says, who did that? All the other 30 kids, they know who did that.
But they
not a single one will say a word, because oh my God, because they'll beat me up at the school too. So then sometimes the teacher will try to punish since none of you say, all of you get punished. And sometimes, and this is a strange phenomenon, they would rather all get punished than to point the finger at the crazy idiot who's actually causing them harm. And so I think that's what happened. My biological siblings, when they saw me being beaten and pushed out and gone without food, they like, well, if I say something, she gonna kick me out too. And so they would say nothing. It's
all about self-preservation.
Yes, self-preservation. And so when you see that, you I didn't do the thing. In fact, actually, it gets worse. I think over time, the siblings started jumping on the bandwagon. Now they're like, well, hey, we gotta way out. So this is scapegoatism. Well, now, if they did something bad at school, if they stole something from the grocery store, if they did something, oh, Terry did that. Oh, yeah, I knew you were the devil. You the devil boy. And I ain't talking about the water boy. You D-E-B-I-L, devil. You the devil boy. It's like, and I'd be kicked out again or beaten with more extension cord or gone without food. So, or the times I told you at the Peninsula Reads event was, and one day she'd take off her high heel shoe with the stilettos, and the point of the high heel would get stuck in my forehead, or at different times she'd be angry for whatever reason. She'd take my head back in the day where they had the steel radiators. She would take my head and just beat them on the steel radiator. And to where, I even still have 23, a mark in my forehead where 23 stitches was. Wow. And that's not the worst part, believe it or not. I think the worst part is when she found God. Oh my God, then you went to hell in a handbasket. So they eventually, wow. After all that abuse, she eventually found religion. I found the Lord. And I don't mean to make fun of anybody's religion. No, I'm very respectful. I'm just, from my experience, this is what I experienced. So she went to a Pentecostal holiness church, who went to church every single day, 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning, and twice on Saturday and all day Sunday, because their belief was, if you ain't in church, you sinning. If you sinning, you ain't in church. I'm like, so if I raise my hand and ask a question in church, you the devil boy, you shut up. You're asking them questions in the church. It's like, wow. Like, well, how can that snake talk in the Garden of Eden? How can that snake talk like that? Boy, you get kicked out. And I got kicked out of the church for asking questions. Boy, you supposed to be seen, not heard. Yeah. So anyway, she eventually, after kicking me out for several days, she let me back in after 2 or 3 weeks. And there are different times she'd just come up with this, I don't know how to call it, but it's more like the holy roller, the scapegoatism, to where you feel with the devil, boy, you feel with the devil. And she would take the olive oil, what they call holy oil, and she would hold my nose and try to make me swallow the olive oil. And then she'd get to dip it and put crosses on my forehead. And she would have fingernails. She would stick them in my neck. We're going to get the devil out of you, boy. We're going to get the devil out of you. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do for making that B on the report card? And so as these things are happening, I'm just like, how can I escape? How can I escape? There is no escape, because in many dysfunctional families, that's the essence of dysfunction, is to have this craziness, but try to keep it hidden from everyone else. So I didn't know any of my very few of my relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles. It was all isolated, because obviously if the aunts and uncles are healthy, they don't want them to see how they're treating their kid. They're like, hey, that ain't right the way you're treating my nephew or my niece. And so I was very isolated in that sense.
So when you were a young teenager, I think around 13 or so, something happened.
Yeah, so I think as a part of her religious indoctrination, she just kept calling me the devil. At every question I asked, everything I was curious about. So she basically put me in a car in Chicago, just said, you the devil, you the reason why we have all these problems. So she put me in a car, drove me down to Plantersville, Mississippi, right around Tupelo, Mississippi, where Elvis was born, and basically opened the car door and just kicked me out and just left me on the side of the road.
So I was about family there.
No, I didn't know anybody there, because I'm just kicked out on the side of the lonely country road. And now, at least in Chicago, I knew where they lived. So when I got kicked out, I could bang on the windows long enough to where after a few weeks they let me back in. But now I'm completely abandoned, and I'm having to sleep in abandoned cars, abandoned buildings, sometimes in people's orchards, sometimes in their they would have pepper hull peas and tomatoes, and I would have to sleep right there in their gardens, sleep in abandoned barns, in the fields, sometimes in a tree, to try to stay off the ground from the snakes. And just looking up and down at the sky, especially at night, and just like thinking about my life and just saying, I want to do something with my life. I just don't know how.
I was going to say, what was going through your mind? I mean, that moment when she put you out of the car and drove away. I mean, do you remember what you might have been thinking or feeling at that moment?
Yeah, you got to remember, it's hard to put it be in someone else's moccasins.
Sure.
But from my mindset, I had been kicked out my whole life. This is so at 13 and a half, this is from 4 to like 13 and a half. That's like 10 years of my life. I'm used to being kicked out. I'm used to being kicked out for no logical reason, no causal explanation. This is a normal thing for me. And so I'm just used to them kicking me out. So they kick me out. Now I just got to survive. I got to dig in the garbage can for food to eat. I've got to do something with my life. And so when I go around to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and sharing this part of my story, I do believe this is what started making the turnaround, the change in my life is sometimes when you put a seed in a certain environment, you can ask any farmer, some seeds only grow in different environments. There are some dysfunctional environments that you can see, especially young African Americans, and I mean, whites and Latinos, even for that matter, who are growing up in dysfunctional environments that you can't, why are they not growing? Why are they not blossoming? It's because the environment that they're in changed the environment. You will start to see something different. It might not be exactly what you want, but you change the environment again, then you'll see something more of what you want. Each seed produces fruit after its own kind. And some seeds work better in some environments than other environments. By them putting me in the southern environment, this community wasn't used to seeing a kid like walking up and down their roads, eating out of their garbage cans. So eventually they called the social services, human services, and they tried to get me off the street. And so they eventually did get me off the street, and I was put in jail because I didn't have anywhere else to go. And then they gave me offer to go into a boys' home, or group home, or foster home, or things like that. And so then that sort of started the next phase.
The next phase of your life. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Terry has an incredible story, and we're going to be talking about the things that helped him to be able to overcome. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So they put you in a foster home? Or a group home.
Yeah, a group home called the Alpha House. It was a place called by Jerry. The founder was Jerry Clayton, and it was a boys' home for kids. I think it's two purposes. The first purpose was for kids who had done bad, who were in juvenile delinquency, doing stuff because they were hanging around with the wrong crowd. And by putting them in this positive environment, hopefully that will have changed. They didn't have the negative influence. Hey, let's go steal that gun. Let's go break into the store. It's like now, no, we don't do things like that here. Come on, you have rules you got to abide by, and there are consequences. And so the second reason for this boys' homes were for kids like me who had been kicked out from their families, and there was nowhere else to go back to. And so I lived there. And so even as a part of the boys' home, most of the other boys had family, like especially for Christmas and vacation and weekends, and they would go to their family. But for me, they started finding different families in the community who would keep me when the boys' home was closed. So I started living with different families, sometimes a week, sometimes a weekend, sometimes a few months.
Were they different races? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. Yes, no, they were. I lived with whites, blacks, Latinos, you name it. And at least eventually when I aged out of this boys' home, and then I was eventually put into like the foster care system, and to where I lived with, different families, and each family had like a different religious affiliation. And so I had to learn to adjust and adapt to whatever that family wanted at that time. And it's not always easy. And sometimes there's carryover effects from the last family with the new family.
Did you ever say to yourself during that whole time, I'm just going to give up. I'm done.
Yeah, 1,000 times. Yes, I said that about 1,000 times. And I'm tired. But every now and then, and this is when I speak to juvenile justice and things like that, that there's two components to success, in my opinion. The first one is you got to change the environment to get them in a healthier environment. The second part is you got to somehow put inside of them this desire for more. some people, because of the stresses and the traumas that are happening, they just give up. The traumas are so overwhelming. The obstacles are so big that you just can't, there's no way I can ever make it out of this hole. And so when you give them that hope and you encouragement and show them paths and examples, you make it more real for them to start saying that, maybe I can be a success too. It starts with a little seed, but I just know I wanted to do something with my life. I didn't know how to do it. And before you go to the next thing, I just want to say that one of the biggest aspects that I had to learn was, and this is hard. This is a big one, Barbara. This is a big one. It's like, and forgiveness. It's like most people don't want to talk about that, or they see it in a religious context. I'm saying forgiveness in a civic context, that there are some things within you. You can't go back and change that boyfriend who stood you up at the prom. You can't go back to, they didn't allow you to go on the basketball team because one leg was longer than the other leg, whatever the reason is. Yeah. And so some things you just have to let go. And I think part of my success, at least the starting of it, was the hardest decision I had to make was, while I'm in Mississippi eating out of the garbage can, being angry at what they did to me, I realized, well, what are they doing right now while I'm angry? They're probably laughing and joking and eating fried chicken and watching Jerry Springer. And I'm just like, who is this anger hurting the most? My anger was hurting me the most. And then even like a computer CPU, when all your resources are allocated to other stuff that's not helping you go toward the goal you want, most people don't realize that they are holding on to these emotional bags of things in their past. How, well, you talked to me a certain way I didn't like. You stepped on my black patent shoes, 40 years ago, and they still holding on to those things today. It's like, so I've just learned that there's some things you learn to just let go, because I can't control it anyway. I can't make that person like me, dislike me. I can't make them talk to me with respect. I can't make them. So you live your life, but I get to control, at least influence those things that I let hold me back, or the things I just let go so I can put my resources toward the thing to move forward.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about overcoming adversity with Dr. Terry Morris, a systems engineer with NASA and also a fantastic motivational speaker. Our phones are lit up, so I think we'll take a couple of calls and then we'll continue your story, Terry. Donald joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Donald. You're on the air.
How you doing? And I would like to say thank God for your determination with your guest. I just like to make it quick. I grew up in Mississippi in a small town, northwest part of Mississippi, and the life you was talking about, I had a smaller version of that. My mother and father was very disciplinary, and I prayed to God that when I had kids, I wouldn't be like them. And the only thing that saved me was joining the military and getting out of that town, because abused women and kids and men in your neighborhood, your culture, everybody accept that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it was right, but it was accepted by all the people in that small town. I have been beat outside the house, and people kept walking by and never did anything. And we saw other people doing that. I didn't agree with it, and thank God I had enough sense not to do my kids like that. And it was just the culture that we grew up in the South. And it's sad that hopefully we could get out of that, but unfortunately it's still permeating some of these people.
Yeah. Donald, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate you being so honest with us. Go ahead, Terry.
Donald, that was really great. Yeah, and that's not just a Southern thing. That's a Northern thing, too, and a Western thing and an Eastern thing, that there are these small communities who have this set of codes that they abide by, and sometimes you may feel like this is not right. But you hopefully, as you get older, like you did, by joining the military, seeing a different view and treating your kids. And I do the same thing with my children today, my two children, Mackenzie and Morgan. And I try to treat them, I try to find the balance. And sometimes I think because of the abuse, I try not to be too lenient, but I also try not to be too hard. And finding that healthy balance in between, that's the hardest part that I think I have with my kids. But Donald, thank you so much for your kind words.
We appreciate that. Faye joins us from Portsmouth. Hi, Faye. You're on the air.
Hello. How are you today?
Okay.
Doing well, Faye?
I really appreciate this program. And first, I want to say congratulations. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I recognize that I was driving, I told her, and I just had to pull over my car because I hadn't thought about those things in years, but the things that you were saying were very recognizable in my life. And I'm just very happy you made it. I still struggle some days, but I feel like I made it too, to a point. But that scapegoatism, what you said, that is so true. That happened to me. My sisters and brothers had, I didn't. There were Christmases, they got stuff. Oh, you did this, so you're not getting nothing for Christmas. Well, you think your mom is just saying that, and maybe you really are, but they mean it. And so, therefore, I recognize what you're saying. I just want to say I'm really happy for you. Congratulations, and, just remember me and my struggles. I'm older now.
I will, Faye, thank you so very much. If you don't mind, I think there's two dimensions of recovery. One is just surviving, and the other is thriving. And I don't know who you've talked to, but I say it's critically important to find trusted individuals, not just anybody. Find someone that you trust, that you can pour your whole heart out and just share without judgment, so you can express the feelings that have been bottled up for so long, where you felt like no one would hear you, no voice. And this is why it's called Another View. It gives a voice to those voices just like you, Faye. And so I just want to say, to find somebody that you can trust, that you can share these stories with, and don't just keep it bottled up. Don't share it with just anybody, but somebody that you trust, so that you don't have like this thing that's buried alive, is what I call it. You don't want to have that buried alive. Mm-hmm. Then you'll go beyond just mere surviving to thriving, to where you can use yours the way I do, use mine to help other people. And some of these are even professionals, to help them to live a better life as well.
Thank you, Faye, so much for the call. We really appreciate it. Terry, you wound up going to Mississippi State, and you got your undergraduate degree.
Yes.
And then how did you get here to the Hampton Roads area?
I think I did so well. You got to remember from this context of when I got put back in school in Mississippi, eventually going to the Alpha House Boys Home, you had to go to school, you had to do this, you had to do all the rules, which are just the common rules you would have for any normal, healthy family. Mm-hmm. And this is a boys' home. And I'm just like, I would sit in class and they'd talk about doing the tests, and I would remember what it was like eating out of the garbage cans. And I remember saying, if somebody just gave me not a whole chance, but a half a chance to do something meaningful with my life. And I'd realize, this is where I am. This is my chance. This is my chance. And so while the other kids are goofing off and not doing their homework and stuff like that, I started doing well, making A's and B's, mostly A's. And they'd be like, why are you making A's? I'm like, because this is my future. This is how I'm trying to get a future for myself. I don't have a safety net to fall back on. If I don't take advantage of this time that I have right now, I don't want to do what when I go around the country speaking, I've got this term called the WCAS, WCS, the woulda, coulda, shoulda disease. Older people suffer from this disease, where they look back on their life and they look and they say, oh, I could have done this when I was your age. I wanted to learn an instrument. Oh, I wanted to join the military. Why didn't you? Well, something came in, and then this came up, and Billy Bob asked me to marry him. And then I'm like, all these days, and it's like they never, if you really wanted it, why didn't you do it? And then all they do is say, think about it for, decades about the woulda, coulda, shouldas. And I say, you know what, you realize this life is not a dress rehearsal. I want to live the life while you have it right now.
But do you think, though, that there was something inside of you? Let me rephrase this. Is there something inside of all of us that can make us push forward that maybe we're not nurturing, or was it just something inside of you? Because it goes back to, a lot of times people will ask the question, those who are raised in poverty, for example, and they go, why is it that some kids soar and they work their way out of it and they go on, and others stay stuck?
Yeah. So
is it just something innate inside of us and we've got to kickstart it, or are you just special?
No, I'm not special. I don't think I'm any special than anybody else. If you prick me, my blood color is just red, just like yours, and I make the biggest mistakes. So I would say, from at least when I talk to others who have survived these traumas, what happens? The hurricane comes through, two houses are identical side by side. The hurricane wipes out one, not the other. The hurricane wipes out both houses. One family, they decide. I really think it's these internal decisions that we make with ourselves back in the old days, they used to have these cartoons where they have the angel on one
side
shoulder
and the
and the
devil on the other,
little
yes.
devil on one side. And they don't realize that stuff's still going on today. You just can't see them. You got to have the special God glasses to see this stuff. And and the thing is, what's in between the angel and the devil? That's one's talking to your voice. You can make it. You can do it. You can, if you work hard enough, you can do it. The other one, no, you ain't no one that's gonna like you. You know you're gonna fail. You might as well save yourself the embarrassment. But it's you in between. Your head is in between these two shoulders, and it's who you decide to listen to. When you decide to listen to the player haters, it's just like then no surprise where you end up. When you decide to listen to the ones who are lifting up the better angels inside of yourself, you can do that. You can. Yes, you can. And that makes a difference. That sometimes it's this bifurcation, and this little nudge in one direction makes all the difference.
In the world. Let's go to Ed in Virginia Beach. Hi, Ed. You're on the air.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay.
Yeah, I had to give a fake name because I know way too many people who listen to your show, and this is kind of private. So, Terry, first of all, I have to say thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it really helps a lot of people who are struggling to hear someone just be able to open up and say, you know what, I had a crappy upbringing, but look at me now. And it really helps. So I started having some anger issues, never violent, just really frustrated and upset about 2 years ago. And it kept going. And my wife finally said, look, you need to go see somebody. So we have seen numerous counselors over the years just for different things, just upkeep, whatever. But somehow my doctor sent me to someone who specializes in PTSD. Mm-hmm. And so I started seeing her, and she asked, all right, well, tell me about your childhood. And really the only things I remembered that were really upsetting were on the last day of school when I was 5, I found my dad dead. And it was really difficult. And my mom couldn't handle it, so she sent me and my brother away for 3 or 4 days until the funeral. So we're abandoned in that situation. Start talking to the therapist about that, and all these other things started coming up that I really didn't remember. Like, she just helped me start working through these things and just said, things are going to start coming up for you. It always happens. I deal with a lot of PTSD stuff. And when you have tools in your toolbox to deal with these things, they're going to come up. So I just started remembering, like, being molested, my mom trying to drown me in a pool, and my dad actually coming and saving me. I didn't remember any of these things, and it has been so hard to deal with this. But
Ed.
There's help out there for everybody, and we're doing it. We're getting through it, and I just want to say to anybody who's struggling with stuff, find a counselor. Find somebody who you really can connect with and get through these things, because you're a beautiful person and you're loved, and all you got to do is do the do.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. That is really awesome, and that's just it. It was one of the other things to share with Barbara is that when you start realizing that you are loved, that you have value, that you have worth, and you realize that you're responsible for your heart and mind. You may not everything that happened to you, but at least dealing with it today so you can have a healthier outlook on life and having some trusted individual. I would highly recommend. You just can't talk to just anybody. You got to use some discernment of who you're going to share and open up with somebody that's not as judgmental. It's all about your healing and your health and your betterment. And that's what you need. And so I think it's great. I really take my hat off to you, Ed, for sharing.
So you went through therapy also? Yeah. Correct? Uh-huh. Yeah, in order to deal with some things. Let's talk to Cheryl in Portsmouth. Hi, Cheryl. You're on the air.
Hi. First of all, Terry, thank you so much for sharing your remarkable story, and same thing for all the other callers that have shared their stories. I was wondering, since you did have such a dysfunctional first view of religion and church and maybe faith, I'm not sure, what are your views today regarding your faith and or the organized church?
Excellent question, Cheryl. It's very, very in depth, so I just try to keep it simple. I'm a Christian. I don't try to use my Christianity to beat anybody over the head with the Bible or the whatever. And I think it's personal for me. And it's not about whether you think I'm a Christian or not. Is am I living according to the principles I think I should be living by in my relationship with my God? So, but other than that, I have, as a part of the different foster families that I live with, whether it's Catholicism, Pentecostalism, whether Baha'i faith, whether it's Mormonism, all the different.
Experienced all of
every family had like a different religion. I had to learn to adapt. So I've read the Book of Mormon, the Holy Quran. I've read the Bible. AME, CME, Presbyterian, you name it. I've been baptized in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, in the name of Jesus, Mary, the Mother of God, fish fries, seances, bingo, you name it.
Wow.
My ticket is punched. When I get to the pearly gates with St. Peter, he gonna say, were you dipped? Yep, I was dipped. Were you submerged? Yep, I did I did 3 submerges.
Wow.
So I've had also, my view is, it's more simple than we think it is. And I tend to stay a little bit away from organized religion. And the book that I like reading is The Path Least Traveled by M. Scott Peck, and The Road Less Traveled. Thank you. The Road Less Traveled. And I tend to see it more like some of the people who need more security. They need more hard boundaries. This is right. This is wrong. You can't wear blue suede shoes on a Thursday. And they say that because that's what they need. But if that's not what you need, you have to have your own relationship and find your own internal compass as you progress through life. So that's my view. I try not to condemn them, but I try to, what can I do to help the situation instead of being a part of the problem?
Let's see if we can get one more call in before we're almost out of time. I can't believe this. Eric is joining us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Eric. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. This has brought back some memories and some ideas that I didn't even know existed. I have a brother that lives in California that has been going through those issues. As he was growing up, I was in the military and was lucky to be able to leave the house. And what he's telling me had been going on with him while I was gone. I had no idea, and I don't know how to get him to go to counseling or get him to go for help.
Okay, we'll get some
Right now, he's pushed himself to the point that he's gone through some alcohol issues. He's been homeless, and now he's in a safe spot. But when we would try to have conversations, I would get so frustrated because I couldn't help him that I would actually get angry and walk away. So now, listening to this, knowing that there are multiple people out that have been going through issues that are similar, I just want to know what I can tell him to get him to find somebody to trust.
Okay, Eric, let's let him answer because I don't want to run out of time.
Gotcha.
I want him to have time to answer.
So I don't have a panacea, but all I can say is the best thing to do is just to love him where he is. And that's hard, to love a person where they are and want better for them. And part of that is just opening and creating a safe environment to say, hey, listen, I'm here whenever you want to talk. The door is open without judgment. What can I do to help you live to help the situation out? If you want to come and express something, and sometimes all you can do is just offer. But it's up for them to decide. And some people, because of the traumas that have happened to them, they hold on to them for dear life, and they use alcohol, sex. Some people use religion to escape the pains that happened to them years ago. But all you can do is just offer to them in the best way, non-judgmentally, to say there's a better way, and I'm willing to help any way that I can.
Eric, I hope that helps you. Thanks so much for your call. So your siblings, are they as successful as you are?
I heard from them years ago that none of them had ever graduated from high school, and most of them had kids out of wedlock. And so I don't keep in touch with them today because there's still a dysfunction happening with them. I tried to help them a few times, but I don't have any relationship with them because they don't have that type of mindset to say, hey, how was your day-to-day? They're like, well, you're doing well, just money. You're doing well, just give me money. Send me money. So I send them money, and they use it on prostitutes and things like that. And I said, I can't do that.
And I noticed you called your mother your biological mother.
Yes.
Do you have a relationship with her?
No, I do not. And so I eventually got adopted when I was 26 years old. And so Dr. Ernestine Madison in Jackson, Mississippi, who was the I guess there's like a vice provost at Washington State University, director of minority affairs at Mississippi State University. At the time, I worked in her office when I was at Mississippi State doing my undergrad, and we just hit it off really well. And then we got adopted, and then so to let you know, everybody needs a family. Whether you, I'm big and bad, I don't need nobody. I don't need nobody. Yeah, you need somebody. Yeah, we all need somebody. And so I try to share those jewels with my children. Hope that they can learn from my mistakes and the things that I've overcome, so they can live a better life.
Wow. Okay, so we got less than 3 minutes left. Okay, give one nugget of what we can do, people in general, if we see a child or a person who needs some help leaning towards that good side as opposed to that negative side.
I would say the first one is the heart, the head, and the body. It's like you got to be able to, if you're not in touch with your own heart, it's hard for you to touch somebody else's heart. You got to be in touch. You got to be genuine and authentic, because people can sense whether you are authentic or you're faking the funk. And just showing them that you care and that you know resources that are available to help them talk, sometimes just to communicate and get it out, the stuff that's been stuffed inside. Number 2 is education. Sometimes we get caught not just for the hurt, but it's the stinking thinking in our head that keeps the stuff trapped in the heart over and over. And between the heart and the head, I don't know if you know this, Barbara, but there are 3 times the amount of connections from the heart to the brain than there is from the brain to the heart. So that's why the heart is the most important. And if you can get that freed up first and then have your thinking, some of the stinking thinking that we think of, that's actually keeping us bound. And if you can do a better way of thinking, that will help us to move forward. And then the body is taking care of yourself, employment, getting a better job, learning your internal compass. Are you doing the things that are important to you? Are you on a path that's important to you for your life, and trying to make sure you have sustained employment? I think if we can help people get more jobs, a lot of these issues would not just go away, but there'll be better ways of solving it. There's a lot of people, when they don't have a job, they turn on themselves, they turn on their family, and then you see all the emotional incest that happening, and all the negativity that gets brewed into that family.
Terry, we could talk for 2 hours and more. First of all, thank you so much for being so honest and sharing your story, because as you heard from our callers, a lot of people, I think, were helped by just being able to hear that there's someone else out there who went through that and then they were successful. And we must have you back.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate that.
We absolutely.
And if you don't mind, I just want to say that, but as an engineer at NASA, NASA has given so many other employees wonderful opportunities for education and employment, to do incredible things, not just for the state, but for the country and for the world. And so I just give a lot of kudos to the leadership at NASA Langley Research Center for allowing me to go out and speak on behalf of homelessness and child abuse.
Fantastic.
So, yes,
thank you so
much. You're welcome.
That's Dr. Terry Morris, a systems engineer with NASA, and we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Claude McKnight of the group Take 6, and you're listening to Another View.
And welcome back. The Black Pullman Porter was the face of railroad advertisement for years. But the link between African Americans and the growth of the country's railroads goes much deeper. Those contributions are highlighted in some of the paintings, prints, and photographs currently on display at ODU's Baron and Ellen Gordon Art Galleries. Another View producer Lisa Godley gives us a look at some of the featured works showcasing the African American influence on America's railroads in the Art of Trains exhibition.
All aboard! What's so important about the railroads in Black history is that it is by far, in American work history, the industry that employed Blacks the most.
It's history that's told in the paintings, prints, and photographs currently on display at the Baron and Ellen Gordon Art Galleries at ODU. Senior Curator Ramona Austin escorted us through the visual narrative titled The Art of Trains.
Art can just explore so many things. What it explores in aesthetics and culture tells us a tremendous amount about who we are or who specific groups are. Black folks built the railroads in the South, the Southeast, which was the beginning of the railroads, exponentially increasing capital. And of course, slaves were significant capital, and they built the railroads, along with a few Irish. Those groups that were on the outside, the underside, the lower side of society, were the ones who did this very hard and dangerous work, like the firemen, the linemen, but also some of the most interesting inventions that helped railroads to develop into what they are were invented by black men. Air brakes and numerous other things that helped to further the development of rail.
One painting in the exhibition showcases the very first train, a vertical boiler called The Best Friend of Charleston.
The piece is most animated and really figures into the black workers, the black musicians who are behind the lead car and behind the tender where all the fuel was. It's really about commerce. It's really about getting the goods from one place to the other. So black people figure very, very importantly in this.
Not only were African Americans key players in keeping the trains running by laying down the tracks and keeping the engine fueled, but the role of the Pullman porter was key. These men are captured in several of the works currently on display.
They earned very little wages. What they made by tips helped them to make a living wage, and they became the pillars of their community and the foundation of the black middle class in this country. They were forced to buy their own uniforms. Their meals were taken out of this. Everything that they had to be furnished by them in order to do the job. And then they were treated with a great deal of disrespect. Everybody was called George.
Not only was the role of the railroad worker highlighted in paintings, but on the big screen and in music. In fact, several popular stories like The Legend of John Henry made their way into musical scores, like this version sung by Harry Belafonte.
Well, John Henry was a little baby sitting on his daddy's knee. Picked up a hammer and a little piece of steel, said, "Hammer be the death of me, Lord God, yes, hammer be the death of me."
He challenged a steam hammer with his own strength and his own hammer. And he beat the steam hammer, but he died in the process of doing it because it was such a physical exertion.
He drove so hard, he broke his poor heart when he laid down his hammer and he died, Lord, Lord, laid down his hammer and he died.
The exhibition showcases some 64 works in all, the majority from the collection of Susan and David Good. Visitors will see works from both trained and untrained artists, each one capturing the important role that trains and people played in growing a nation. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And the Art of Trains exhibition runs through July 2018 at ODU's Barron and Ellen Gordon Art Galleries located on Monarch Way in Norfolk. We hope you've been inspired by all you've heard today, particularly Terry's story. If you'd like to hear it again or share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. And while you're there, please sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Next time on Another View, Dr. Keith Newby with tips on maintaining your diet during the holiday season. It's Another View on Health. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Jordan Yowell answered our phones. And a very happy birthday to Grace Douglas, our social media manager here at WHRV. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.